What makes a man who never once raised his voice, who kept his head down for 30 years and liked it that way, walk into a travel office at 63 and buy a one-way ticket to the other side of the planet? I've had a while to sit with that question now, and I still turn it over some mornings. My name's Ralph Hargrove. I'm 63 years old, and until not long ago, I was a school custodian and groundskeeper in Beaumont, Texas, Gulf Coast refinery country, flat and hot and honest. 30 years in the same district. I was the fella who unlocked the building before the sun came up. Cut the grass, waxed the floors, fixed the drinking fountains, unstuck the doors when the humidity swelled them shut. I knew every kid's name. Not most of them. Every one. I'd learned a long time back that a boy who's having a bad week will tell the custodian things he won't tell a soul else because the custodian isn't grading him. That was my life, and I want to be plain with you, I loved it. I wasn't climbing anything. I mopped up after other folks' lives, and I was proud of it. Clean hallway, mowed field, a building that was ready when the kids came through the doors. That was mine. And then it ended. All at once, the way those things do. I retired at the end of a school year, June. They gave me a sheet cake in the teacher's lounge and a card everybody signed, and one of the office ladies cried a little, and I drove home in my truck and pulled into the driveway and turned off the engine. And the quiet it came down over that house like a tarp. I want you to understand the shape of it. My kids were already gone, grown and scattered. My daughter's out in Denver, my oldest boy's up in Ohio, the youngest bounces around wherever the work is. Good kids, we're on decent terms. But they built their lives a long flight from Beaumont, the way kids do, and there's no blame in that. It's just how it went. So there I was. The house had gone quiet years back when they left. And now the school, the one place that stayed loud, stayed full, 30 years of hollering kids and slamming lockers and the marching band murdering a fight song out on the field that went quiet the very same month. 2 silences at once. A man doesn't always notice how much noise was holding him up until it's gone and he's standing there in the still of it listening to the refrigerator hum. I'm not a dramatic man. I didn't fall apart. I did what fellas like me do. I kept busy. I painted the fence that didn't need painting. I organized the garage twice. I'd get to about 4 in the afternoon and realize I hadn't said a word out loud to another human being all day, and my own voice would come out rusty when I finally used it at the H-E-B checkout. I remember one afternoon in particular. I'd driven back out to the school, I don't fully know why, just to look at it, and I parked across the street the way I used to, early, before anybody. It was summer, so the place was locked up and empty. The grass I used to cut getting long, a soccer ball somebody'd left out on the field going flat in the sun. And I sat there in the truck with the engine ticking, and I thought, 30 years I kept that whole building alive, and now it doesn't need me and neither does anything else. Then I felt foolish for sitting there, so I drove home and organized the garage a third time. That was the summer I had. A man can only clean a garage so many times before something in him starts asking a bigger question. There was a marriage, long ago. Didn't take. That's an old story and not the one I'm telling. This isn't about a woman. It's about a man who spent 30 years being needed and useful and known, and then woke up one Tuesday and wasn't any of those things to anybody, and didn't have the first idea what to do with the rest of it. Here's the part I'm not proud of. I started counting. Not money, I mean I'd catch myself doing the arithmetic on how many years I likely had left, and it wasn't the number that scared me. It was picturing them. 20 more Tuesdays a year like this one. 20 more organized garages. That was the thing that got under my ribs. I'd love to tell you I hatched a brave, careful plan. I didn't. What I had was an old friend from the district who kept sending me pictures from a place I'd never once thought about, and a laptop and a lot of long empty evenings to sit and wonder. And on a Thursday, on hope more than sense, I bought a ticket to Bangkok. Together one way. Didn't buy a return. I want to be honest about that, because it sounds bold and it wasn't. Exactly, it was a 63-year-old man who was more scared of another quiet year than he was of a foreign country. I didn't know if it'd work. I want to say that clear right up front before I tell you a single good thing, because plenty went sideways and some of it I brought on myself. But that ticket sitting in my email, unread flight and no way home booked for the first time in a long while, I felt something other than the hum of that refrigerator. Let me back up and tell you how a man like me even got the notion. The notion came from Dale. Dale ran the shop class 2 hallways over from my office for the better part of 20 years, taught boys to weld and wire a plug and not lose a finger to a table saw. We were the two fellas in that building who worked with our hands, so we ate lunch together more often than not, out on the loading dock when the weather allowed. He retired a good 5, 6 years before me, and where most fellas go to a lake house in East Texas, Dale went to Bangkok, Thailand. His wife had passed, his knees were shot, and he said the Texas summers were cooking him alive on a fixed income, so he up and left. And every couple months a postcard. Actual postcards, because Dale's stubborn like that, a gold temple, a river full of long, skinny boats. A plate of something orange with a note on the back, "Ralph ate this off a cart for $1.50. Come see for yourself, you old mule." I stuck them on the refrigerator with the kids' school magnets and didn't think much of it. Then I retired, and the postcards started reading different. I called him. First time in a couple years we'd talked more than a line. I'll tell you what I expected. I expected a fella lonelier than me, putting a brave face on it. That's not what I got. Dale was busy. Dale had a card game on Wednesdays and a lady friend and a whole crew of expats and Thai neighbors, and he was going on about a market and a park and a hospital that fixed his knee for a fraction of what they wanted in Houston. He sounded 10 years younger than the last time I'd heard him. "What's it cost, though?" I said. Because I'm practical, and because that's the first thing a man on a pension needs to know before he lets himself dream about anything. So Dale told me, and I did what I've done my whole life when a number matters. I got a legal pad. I sat at my kitchen table with that yellow pad and a pen, and I laid it all out honest, no fudging. On the income side, I've got my pension from the teacher retirement system of Texas. 30 years in the district put me a little over $2,300 a month. Steady. Comes rain or shine. I've got a small Social Security check on top of that from some private jobs in my younger years, maybe $500 a month. Call it right around $2,800 a month, all in. And I'd been careful. I had about $130,000 set aside. Not rich. Comfortable. For a man who never made much and never spent much either. Then Dale walked me through the other side of the pad. A good apartment in his part of the city, he said, 20-something thousand baht. I had to ask him to slow down. Baht's the money over there, and it runs about 33 of them to $1. So 28,000 baht is around $850 for a nice one-bedroom, he said, in a building with a pool near the train. Food, if you eat like the locals, next to nothing. He figured a fella could live comfortable, really comfortable, not scraping on somewhere around 70,000 baht a month, a little over $2,000. I sat there and stared at that pad a long time, because the arithmetic wasn't even close. 2,800 coming in. A good life going out for around 2,100. That's $600 a month I wouldn't even be spending, in a place where Dale had a card game on Wednesdays and I had, back home, an organized garage and a fence that didn't need painting. Now, I want to be fair to myself and to you. It wasn't really about the $600. I was doing fine on the money in Beaumont. The money was never the thing that was killing me. The quiet was. But the pad told me something the quiet couldn't. It told me I wasn't crazy, that I could actually do this, that the numbers held up, that it wasn't a fantasy a foolish old man cooked up at 2 a.m. The numbers gave me permission. I sat on it for about 3 weeks. I'm not an impulsive man, whatever that plane ticket looks like from the outside. I read everything I could find. Watched 100 videos of fellows walking around Bangkok with a camera. Some of it scared me, the traffic, the heat, the sheer size of the place, 11 million people more, and me a small-town Texan who gets turned around in Houston. And some nights I'd talk myself right out of it. Who did I think I was? 63. Never been anywhere but a fishing trip to Louisiana. Didn't speak a word of the language. Couldn't find Thailand on a map 2 months prior, if I'm honest. But then 4 in the afternoon would come around, and the refrigerator would hum, and I'd hear my own rusty voice, and I'd think about Dale on his loading dock now trading it for a river full of boats. So I called the travel agent. I still use a travel agent. Sue me, and before I could think better of it, I bought the ticket. One way. And then I called my daughter in Denver to tell her what her old man had gone and done, and that is a whole conversation of its own. The heat hit me before I was even off the jet bridge. You'd think a Gulf Coast Texan would be ready for heat. I was not ready for this. Beaumont in August is a warm, wet towel. Bangkok is that. Plus the whole city breathing on you, plus a smell I didn't have a name for yet, grilled meat and diesel and something sweet and something rotten and flowers, all at once, all the time. I stepped out of that airport at close to midnight, and my shirt was soaked through before I found the taxi line, and I remember thinking, well, Ralph, you've done it now. Dale met me the next morning. He'd set me up in a little short-term rental in his neighborhood out on the east side of the city, a district called On Nut, right off the train line, and he walked me out into it like a man showing off his own front yard. I have never in my life felt so far from Beaumont, Texas. The train, they call it the BTS, the SkyTrain, runs up on rails 2 stories over the road, and it's clean and cold and quiet inside, and it slides right over the top of all that chaos. Down below, motorbikes everywhere, hundreds of them, threading between the cars. Fellas in orange vests parked at the mouth of every little side street, a soy. They call a side street, and Dale told me those were motorbike taxis. You hop on the back, and they run you down to the market for 20-30 baht, under $1. I did not get on the back of one for about 3 weeks. I'm too old and too heavy and too Texan for that, I figured. I was wrong about that, too. But that's later. That first ride on the SkyTrain, I stood holding the pole with my knuckles white, watching the city roll by underneath us, a knot of markets, then a wall of glass towers, then a golden temple roof poking up between 2 shopping malls like it had always been there, because it had. Beaumont, the tallest thing we've got is the courthouse and a couple refinery stacks. Here I couldn't see the end of it in any direction. And down at a sock, where 2 train lines crossed, the crowd came at me from every side, office folks, monks, tourists, kids in school uniforms, and I flattened myself against a pillar and just let it wash past. Dale laughed at me. You'll be swimming in it in a month, he said. I didn't believe him. Right then I'd have given $100 to be back in my quiet truck in an empty parking lot in Texas. The food, though, Lord, the food. Dale walked me down his soy to where a woman had a cart set up, and he ordered for me because I couldn't read a word of it. The writing over there looks like nothing you've ever seen, all loops and curls. She handed me sticks of grilled pork, mu ping they call it, with a little bag of sticky rice, and I ate it standing up on the sidewalk, and I about had a religious experience. Cost me, all told, maybe 40 baht. Call it $1.25. I had 3 more. You keep eating like that, they'll have to roll you home, Dale said, and I told him to mind his own plate. Then he took me around the corner to another stall for what he called cow man gai, plain-looking chicken and rice, with a sauce that had no business tasting that good, and then a bag of cut mango and sticky rice with sweet coconut on it for after, and by the end of that walk I'd eaten better than I had in a year of my own cooking, for less than what a value meal runs back in Beaumont. I kept doing the arithmetic in my head, and it kept not making sense in the best possible way. Dale watched me do it and just grinned. Told you, he said. You'll see. Takes about a week for the number to stop bothering you. Everywhere I looked, there was food, and there were people, and there was noise. Good noise. Living noise. The exact opposite of my kitchen in Beaumont. Somebody grilling. A radio going. ladies calling out prices, little gold shrines on the corners with marigolds and incense, and a cold orange soda set out as an offering. Monks, actual monks, barefoot, in orange robes, the color of those taxi vests, walking in the early morning with a bowl, and folks kneeling on the sidewalk to give them rice. I'd never seen anything like it. I grew up Baptist in Texas. This was a whole different way of being holy, and I found I liked watching it. Now, I've told you the good. Let me tell you the other side of that first week, because it was there too, right alongside. I was lonely as a stone. Sounds crazy I'd cross the planet to get away from lonely, and here it was, waiting for me. Worse in a way. Back home, at least I knew how everything worked. Here I couldn't read a menu, couldn't count my change without staring at it, couldn't tell you which of those loops on the storefront meant open. Dale had his own life. He couldn't babysit me, and I wouldn't have let him. So there were long afternoons in that rented room with the air conditioner rattling, jet-lagged and hot, and about as far from useful as a man can get, wondering what in the world I'd done. I'd bought a one-way ticket. There was no return flight to run home to. Some nights that felt brave. Some nights it felt like I'd shut a door behind me that I couldn't open again, and I'd lie there and do the math on how much it'd cost to just go home and admit I was a fool. I did the thing I always do. I got practical. I started small. I learned to say hello sawadee crap. You put a little crap on the end if you're a man. It's just polite. I learned thank you cap kun crap. I'd practice on the cart lady. I butchered it every time, and every time she'd laugh, not mean, and say it back to me slow. And I started keeping a little notebook, not a legal pad this time, a little pocket thing of what everything actually cost. Because I hadn't come all this way to daydream. I'd come to find out if the pad was right. By the end of that first month, I had two things, a notebook full of real numbers and a decision to make. Let me give you the numbers, because I promised you honest, and honest means the money too. I found my apartment in a district called Phra Kanong, a stop down the train line from Dale, a neighborhood that's a little more Thai and a little less flashy, which suited me fine. One bedroom, small kitchen, a pool downstairs I use more than I'd admit, 9th floor, so I get a breeze and a view of the city lights, and a 5-minute walk to the SkyTrain. 28,000 baht a month, around $850. Back in Beaumont, that's a room in somebody's basement. Here it's the nicest place I've ever lived, and I've lived in the same little frame house most of my adult life. Then I sat down with my notebook and added up a real month, everything, no lying to myself. Rent, 28,000. Electric with the air conditioner running, because you run the air conditioner. This isn't a place you tough it out, call it 3,500 baht. Food. And I eat well, out most nights off the carts and the markets, cooking a little at home, around 20,000 baht. Getting around on the train in the odd grab car, that's like a taxi you call on your phone, 3,500. Phone and internet, 1,500. My health insurance, which I'll come back to, works out to around 4,000 a month. And then a fat everything else, line a gym, gifts, a weekend trip, throwing money in the temple box, buying Dale's card game around. I put down about 11,000 baht to be safe. Add it all up and I land right around 71,000 baht a month, a little over $2,100. Now set that against what comes in. Close to 2,800 a month, pension and Social Security together, so I'm living a genuinely comfortable life, not a scraping by life. A good one. Eating out, swimming, traveling a little, and I've still got somewhere around $600 a month. I'm not spending, and I haven't touched the 130,000 in savings at all. That money just sits there being a cushion. I ran that page 4 times. I couldn't quite believe it, coming from a country where a fella my age is scared to retire at all. Then there was the visa, and that's where the good story gets its first real dose of the tedious. You can't just show up and stay, obviously. For a fella over 50 who wants to retire there's a retirement visa. Dale steered me, and everything I read backed him up toward doing it from inside the country the in-country route they call the non-O, rather than applying from back home, because the from-home version, the OA, comes with a mandatory health insurance requirement that gets complicated and pricey, and the amount of coverage you've got to show varies depending on who you ask, so you just verify it and don't trust any one number. The in-country route mostly skips that headache. So that's the road I took. Either way, you've got to prove you're not going to be a burden. Two ways to do it. You either park 800,000 baht, which is about $24,000, in a Thai bank account and let it sit and season for the required months, or you show income of 65,000 baht a month, around $1,970 coming in. Now here's a funny thing. My pension alone, run into baht, actually clears that income number. I could have gone that way. But the paperwork on proving foreign income was a snarl. So I did what Dale did and just moved $24,000 of my savings into a Bangkok bank account and let it sit, which I could do precisely because I'd been careful my whole life. A fellow without that cushion would have had to go the income route, and it's doable. It's just more forms. I'm not going to walk you through every piece of paper because it'd put you to sleep, and it near put me to sleep. Copies of everything, front and back, and then copies of the copies. A form for this, a stamp for that. Dale rode along with me the first time, thank the Lord, because that immigration office is a whole morning of taking a paper number and sitting in a plastic chair under a fan and waiting for your number to come up on a board you can't read. A young Thai officer went through my folder page by page, real polite, and at one point looked up and said something I didn't catch, and my stomach dropped clean through the floor thinking I'd done it all wrong. Dale leaned over. "She wants one more copy of your bank book," he said. "Machine's out in the hall. Go." I about knocked the chair over getting up, but it worked. Came back, she stamped it, gave me a little nod, and that was that. And standing outside that office in the heat with a 1-year stamp in my passport, I made the decision I'd been circling for a month. I called the short-term place and told them I was out. I'd found my apartment. I was staying. I called Dale and he said, "Took you long enough, you old mule." I called my daughter in Denver and she went quiet on the line, and then she said, "So you're really doing this?" And I said, "Sugar, I already did. Now I owe you the bad," because I promised it, and because a fella telling you only the pretty parts is a fella selling you something. Start with the paperwork, since I just left off there. That 1-year stamp isn't the end of it. It's the start of a relationship with the immigration office you keep up forever. Every 90 days, you've got to report where you're living. A 90-day report, they call it. Miss it and there's a fine. And worse, a black mark you don't want. Well, I missed mine. First one. Nobody told me the clock had already started. I lost track of the days and all the newness, and I turned up something like 2 weeks late, sweating, certain they were going to throw me out of the country. They didn't. Little fine. A look from the officer that made me feel about 9 years old getting sent to the principal, which, given my old line of work, was a fresh kind of humbling. Now I've got 3 alarms in my phone for it. That wasn't even the dumb one. The dumb one was the re-entry permit. Couple months in, Dale and a few of the fellas were taking a little trip down to the coast and invited me along, and I nearly got on that flight not knowing that if you leave Thailand while you're on this visa, you've got to buy a re-entry permit first, or your whole visa cancels itself the second the plane leaves the ground. All that seasoning of the 800,000 baht, all those forms, gone just because you flew to the beach without the right slip of paper. I found out about it 2 days before by pure luck from a fella at the card game. 2 days. I still get a little cold thinking how close I came to torching the whole thing over a weekend trip. So that's the bureaucracy. It's real, it's fussy, and it does not care that you're a nice fellow who meant well. Then there's the language, and I won't lie to you the way some of these videos do. No, everybody does not speak English over there. In the tourist parts of central Bangkok, sure, you get by. In my neighborhood, on my soy, with the cart ladies and the old fella who fixes shoes and the folks at the little shop not so much. Thai is a tonal language, which means the same syllable said in 5 different pitches is 5 different words, and I have a flat Texas voice that goes up and down about as much as the Gulf Coast does, which is not at all. I have, without any doubt, ordered things I did not mean to order. I once spent a solid 5 minutes trying to buy a phone charger through a combination of pointing and sound effects. It is humbling to be a grown man reduced to charades. And underneath all that, the loneliness came back around, hard, somewhere in month 2 or 3. The newness wore off. Dale had his own life. The apartment was quiet in the evenings, the same way Beaumont had been quiet, and now it was quiet in a place where I couldn't even call a buddy or drive to a familiar diner. I hit a night, I'll be straight with you, I hit a night where I sat on my 9th floor balcony with my phone in my hand, and I had the flight booking page pulled up, and I was maybe 2 thumb taps from going home and calling the whole thing a nice try and an expensive mistake. I didn't book it. I don't even fully know why. I think I was just too stubborn to quit that fast. But I want you to know that wobble was real, because if you're sitting where I was sitting, you're going to have your own version of that balcony, and it doesn't mean you failed. It means you're a human being a long way from home. What turned it wasn't some big moment. It was small. It was the som tam lady. Som tam's a green papaya salad, spicy enough to raise the dead down the soy from my building. I'd been buying from her most days, butchering my thank yous, and one evening she waved me over before I'd even ordered and had it already made. Less fire in it than she gives the Thai folks, because she'd figured out the farang can't take the full heat. Farang's what they call us, Westerners. She'd remembered me. She'd made my order without me asking. Such a little thing. I stood on that sidewalk with my papaya salad, and I about teared up, 63 years old, over a plastic bag of vegetables. That was the first thread. After that, there were more. The motorbike taxi fellows at the mouth of my soy started nodding at me, then joking with me in the 10 words we shared. The card game folded me in. It builds slow over there. Thai folks are warm, but they're private. They hold a little back at first. Kreng Jai, they call it. A kind of politeness that doesn't want to impose. So it's not the instant backslapping you might get in Texas. You earn it by just turning up, the same face, day after day, until you're not a stranger anymore. And I was good at turning up. 30 years unlocking the same building at dawn, turning up was the one thing I'd always known how to do. Here's the part that still makes me laugh, and it's the part I never saw coming, so I'll file it under the unexpected. Back in Beaumont, I was the quiet one. Head down, do the work, don't make a fuss. 30 years, and I doubt I said 3 unnecessary words a day. Now? My daughter came to visit. I'll get to her, and she watched me walk 2 blocks and said, "Dad, you know everybody. What happened to you?" And she's right. I do. Somewhere in this, I turned into a fella who knows everybody on his street. My mornings settled into a shape I love. I'm up early, always have been. 30 years of unlocking a building at dawn doesn't wash out of you. There's a Wat, a temple, a few swaths over, and I found I like to walk down that way in the cool of the morning before the heat clamps down and watch the monks come by with their bowls and the neighborhood folks kneeling to offer them rice and set out a little food. I'm not Buddhist. I don't kneel. But I'll stand across the street with my coffee and watch, and there's a peace to it that I never found in a pew, and I've made my peace with not fully understanding it. Some mornings the old lady from the fruit stand hands me a banana as I pass, won't take a baht for it, and that's my church, I suppose. Then coffee with whoever's around, the market for what I need, a swim in the afternoon when it's too hot to be a hero. Wednesdays, the card game, a mixed crew, a couple of Brits, an Aussie, Dale, 2 Thai fellas who beat us all regular. We play for small money and give each other a hard time, and the 2 Thai fellas, Knock and a big laughing man everybody calls Chai, have taken it on themselves to fix my terrible Thai 1-card game at a time. They'll hold up the cards and make me say the numbers, and when I butcher a tone and accidentally say something filthy, which is often Apparently the whole table comes apart laughing, and Chai wipes his eyes and says, "Ralph, no, no," and tries again. I've learned more sitting at that table than I ever did off a phone app. Weekends I'll ride the train up to the big weekend market, Chatuchak, which is about 1,000 acres of everything under the sun, or wander the fresh market down at Klong Toi, the biggest in the city, where I now buy fish from a lady who calls me by a Thai nickname I'm told means uncle. I've been to the river for the Loy Krathong festival, everybody floating little candle boats down the water at night, thousands of them, and I stood on the bank and floated mine and didn't feel like a tourist doing it. I felt like a fella who lived there, because I do. And come April, there's Songkran, which is the new year, and the whole country turns into the biggest water fight you ever saw, grown men with buckets and hoses in the street, and I got soaked to the bone by a gang of kids on Sukhumvit and laughed harder than I had in 10 years. Let me handle the health part honest, because for a man my age it matters, and it's where the responsible fella in me pays attention. I'm 63. That means I'm not on Medicare yet. That doesn't kick in till 65, a couple years off for me, so I carry a private plan to bridge the gap. And over here that runs me a little over 40,000 baht a year, around $1,300, which for a man in his early 60s is fair. When I turn 65, I'll sign up for Medicare like anybody, mostly to keep it for trips back to the States. Because here's the thing a lot of folks don't know until it's too late. Medicare does not cover you one dime over here, not at any hospital in Thailand. So the private insurance isn't optional, it's the real safety net for anything serious. And the day-to-day care, I about fell over. I caught a chest thing my first winter, went to a clinic, saw a doctor inside of 20 minutes, walked out with medicine, and the whole bill was 1,500 baht, $45. For the big stuff, the real stuff, this city's got hospitals, Bumrungrad, Samadavage that folks fly in from all over the world to use, and they're a fraction of what the same care runs back home. It gave me a kind of calm about growing old that Beaumont with its insurance mazes never once gave me. Now my daughter, she was the one who took it hardest when I left, went quiet on the phone, thought her old fool father had lost his mind. She came out about 4 months ago, and I could see her getting ready to feel sorry for me at the airport. Then she spent 5 days here, watched the fruit lady give me a banana, sat at the card game, ate off the carts, rode on the back of a motorbike taxi and screamed the whole way and loved it. And on her last night she said, "I was scared you came here to disappear, Dad," and I told her the truth. I said, "Sugar, I came here to come back." We video call every Sunday now, her and me, sometimes the boys. It's not the same as being down the road from grandkids. I won't pretend it is. But it's more than I had in that quiet house, and she can see, plain on the screen, that her father is a man who's got his color back. So here's where I've landed, a little shy of a year in, and I want to give it to you straight, the whole ledger. Because you didn't come here for a fairy tale, and I'm not selling you one. The good is real. I live in a bright apartment with a pool, in a city that's awake and warm and full of life, on a pension that stretches further here than it ever did at home, with money left over every single month and a savings account I've never had to touch. I eat like a king off carts that cost $1. I've got a card game and a market lady who saves me the good fish and a crew of fellas who'd notice if I didn't turn up. At 63, after a year of hearing nothing but my own refrigerator, I got my life back louder than it's been in decades. That's not a small thing, that's the whole thing. And the bad is real too, and I won't sand it down. The heat is genuinely brutal. There are afternoons you just surrender to it. The paperwork never fully ends. There's always a report to file or a stamp to renew, and it'll never once care that you meant well. The language still beats me most days, and I've made my peace with being a little bit of an outsider, with only ever having 10 words where I want 100, with being the Farang who can't quite catch the joke. And I miss things. I miss my grandkids growing up in real time instead of on a Sunday screen. I miss knowing that if something went truly wrong, my family's a long, expensive flight away and not a short drive. Those are true costs. I pay them. I decided they were worth it, but you might not, and that's an honest answer too. The unexpected, that's the one I can't get over. I came here to escape being lonely. I did not come here expecting to become the friendly old fella everybody on the street knows by name. I spent 30 years as the quiet man in the background, mopping the floor, keeping to myself, and it took moving 9,000 miles from Beaumont, Texas, to find out I actually had a whole lot of people in me waiting on a place loud enough and warm enough to let them out. Nobody could have told me that. I wouldn't have believed them. I think about that fella in the truck a lot, the one who drove out to sit across the street from a locked-up school and feel useless. If you'd told him that inside of a year he'd be floating a candle down a river in Thailand with a market lady saving him a fish and a card table full of men hollering his name and getting it wrong, he'd have said you were describing somebody else's life. And here's the strange part. I've made my peace with it isn't somebody else's. It was in me the whole time. I just never lived anywhere that asked for it. Beaumont let me stay quiet. Bangkok won't let a man stay quiet if he steps out his front door, and it turned out I didn't want to. I'm not going to sit here and tell you I've got it all figured out, because I don't. Some Sundays, after the video call ends and the screen goes dark, that old quiet comes back into the apartment for an hour, and I feel every one of those 9,000 miles. I miss my kids. I'll always miss my kids. That doesn't go away, and I wouldn't want it to. If you're sitting where I was sitting in a too-quiet house at 4 in the afternoon, doing the arithmetic on how many empty Tuesdays you've got left, I'm not going to tell you to do what I did. I don't know your life. Maybe your family's close and your knees are worse than Dale's and your roots go too deep to pull up. This isn't for everybody, and any fella who tells you it is lying to you. But I'll tell you what that ticket did for me. It didn't fix everything. It traded one set of problems for a better set. That's all, and the better set came with a market lady who saves me a fish, and a river full of candle boats, and a daughter who finally quit worrying. If your problem is a silence you can't fill, there are louder places to grow old than the one you're in. That's all I really know. Before I let you go, one thing, and then I'll hush. If any of this landed for you, if you've got that same itch I had, sitting up wondering whether the numbers could ever work for somebody like you, there's a free tool down in the description worth a look. The Honest Thailand Retirement Starter Kit, they call it. I didn't make it, and I'm not selling you a thing, I promise you that. It's just a plain, honest self-check that'll tell you straight whether this is even worth your while. It's as ready to talk you out of it as into it. And a worksheet where you run your own real numbers city by city, the way I ran mine on that yellow legal pad at my kitchen table. Cost you nothing. And if it tells you to stay right where you are, well, that's an honest answer too, and there's no shame in it. That's all I've got for you. You take care of yourself now.